On the national level, the most ethical, most transparent administration in American history, or at least that's what they said. But I think that's kind of hard to believe when half a dozen of their cabinet nominees have failed to pay their taxes. But you know, I think actually that's a neat idea for the IRS. Great idea for the IRS to get their tax collections up, to go collect back taxes, just to appoint them to the cabinet. You know, the stimulus is incredible. Namely, it puts my 3-month-old daughter, who's there in the back somewhere with Amy, puts my 3-month-old daughter's kids in debt. But you don't hear people talking about that. You don't hear about how the stimulus is actually, of all the stimulus, that less than 12% could actually be related to something somehow related to stimulus. You don't hear about how the public, less than 17% of the public supports that stimulus bill. And you know it must be bad on the stimulus bill when you have the Washington Post writing stories about how FDR's New Deal wasn't really a great deal. It must be bad when the New York Times is saying that France and President Sarkozy there is more conservative than the American public. Yes. And you know, it must be really bad when the Boston Globe is putting out stories about the lost decade in Japan, where they tried what we're trying now in the United States, and not only didn't work, it took several steps backwards. You know, we need to be working as a Republican Party for the little guy. We need to be talking about the little guy. I got an email from a constituent about a month ago. She runs a small printing business. She has about 20 employees, and she asked all these employees to to reduce their 40-hour work weeks to 32-hour work weeks. And she did that so that she could keep all of her employees and not lay anybody off. Well, she emailed me and she said, Jeff, not only have I asked my employees to do this, but I've also taken out a home equity loan to help make ends meet with my business. So again, I wouldn't have to send my employees home without a job. Well, she said, where's my stimulus? Well, I think President Barack Obama forgot to give them the stimulus, the ones that really need it. Small businesses are the largest employers in our country, and we need to make sure that they survive. And it's unfortunate that the Democrats in Washington have decided to ensure that ACORN and all these liberal left-wing interest groups are surviving longer than our small businesses. But the House Republicans in Washington offered real solutions. They offered solutions like cutting the capital gains tax, like cutting income tax, like cutting FICA tax, getting rid of some of these taxes. I mean, can you imagine that they could have very easily, with a whole lot less money than they put in that stimulus bill, got rid of your federal income taxes for 6 months or even a year? I mean, what are you going to do if you suddenly have all that money in your pocket? I'm going to go to Circuit City and get one of those discount TVs for me. We're going to stimulate some things here. But they didn't think of that. You know, I'm a big football fan. Those games, some of those games, you know, you go to Super Bowls, a lot of them, not the most recent one, but you can go and you can clearly see that one team is better. But due to inferior strategy, penalties, and lost opportunities, the better team loses. Well, we are the better team. But we've got to get united, prepared, and we must preserve our Republican brand. We must. You know, all successful companies have successful brands, right? They spend millions of dollars, tons of effort and energy in advertising, and trying to make sure that everybody understands what their brand is. My friend Grover Norquist of Americans for Tax Reform likes to talk about the Coke brand. Well, you know, Coca-Cola spends a lot of time making sure that you know exactly what that label means. You don't need to taste what a Coke is. You've already had it. You can go anywhere in the world and you know that when you see that Coke bottle, no matter if you're in Egypt or you're in Florida or you're in Japan, you're going to get the same thing. But what happens when you're drinking that Coke and 3/4 down the way, you find the rat head in that Coke bottle? Are you going to keep drinking that Coke? Well, not only are you not going to keep drinking, you're going to wonder if you're even going to drink it again in the future. You're going to go get another Coke bottle. And what you're also going to do is you're probably going to go talk to your friends and your neighbors. You're going to say, you're not going to believe what happened the other day when I was drinking a Coke. And all your friends are going to say, oh, I'm not getting Coke anymore. I don't want a rat head in my Coke bottle. And they're going to tell their friends, and their friends are going to tell their friends. And you're probably not going to buy a Coke anytime soon again. Well, now Coke has a major problem. Its brand is damaged, it's tarnished, and people begin to wonder if Coke is really what they thought it once was. Well, there are a few examples of how our Republican brand have been tarnished over the last several years in that way. So what do we do? Well, Newt Gingrich had a great column in the Washington Times recently. He suggests that the Republican Party has a simple and almost certainly successful future if it does three things. One, we must advocate first principles with courage, clarity, persistence, and cheerfulness. This is very important since voters are obviously very confused about who Republicans are these days and how we're going to face the challenges that are before us, all of us, that are before our families, that are before our small businesses. Second thing he suggests is that we must insist on developing solutions based on our principles. We don't need to be Democrats. We don't need to be Democrat-lights. We need to go out, we need to stand for our principles and develop solutions based on those principles that will address the quality of life issues that families are facing every day. And we must measure every solution that we come up with against those principles. The House Republican tax cut plan, as I mentioned earlier, would have created twice as many new jobs at half the cost of the current stimulus bill. We could have cut the FICA tax in half for a year and would produce much faster stimulation to the economy than a government spending program. A proposal to eliminate the capital gains tax would bring much more money into creating jobs than everything that government will try to do than anything government would try to do through government and politicians and bureaucrats. At the state level, we passed a transportation plan this year. You didn't hear anything about it. But the House Republicans passed a transportation plan that provided up to $600 million in additional transportation money to Northern Virginia without raising your taxes. But you didn't hear anything about that. The third thing that Newt suggests that we do is that we need to be prepared to oppose Republicans when they're on the wrong side. And we also must be prepared to side with Democrats when they're right. But we must always make the decision to support or oppose a matter of first principles and an application to those principles. Because what's more important? We dilute our brand, we get that rat head in the Coke bottle, or we stand up for our principles and stand up for who we are as a party and make sure that we can move forward successfully as a party. We must be critical of the policy or the vote, whatever that might be. Not the person, however. We're a family. We're a Big Ten party. We need to welcome anybody into this party who agrees with us. And as Reagan said, 80% of the time, if they agree with us, they're our friends. We must be a Big Ten. But if you remember, how's a Big Ten held up? 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe polls. You knock down those polls and we don't have a 10 anymore. Those polls are our principles. We must make sure those polls stay up. And anyone who wants to come under that 10, under that 10, with those polls holding up that 10, we need to welcome them in. And we must reach out to every person, every single person who wants a better future through freedom, through hard work, and through opportunity. This is the work before us, Prince-William Republicans. These are the things that I'm fighting for. And these are the things that I hope you'll be fighting for. And together, I know, together, if we can come together, we will win this fight and we will be successful. Thank you all for everything. Thank you all for your support. Be in touch. And we'll be back.